The woman's body hit the frozen ground 3 feet from Jacob Callahan's barn door. Her arms never let go of the child. Jake dropped his lantern and ran. Snow bit his face. Wind howled like something dying. He reached them in seconds, a woman unconscious, ice crystals in her hair. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, shaking so hard her teeth cracked together like gunshots. "Mister?" The child's voice was barely a whisper. "Please, Mama said find the light. She said the light means good people." Jake looked at the bruises on the woman's face. Someone had beaten her. Recently. Badly. He made his choice in that moment. Before we continue this journey through the Wyoming territory, where one man's decision will change 4 lives forever, I invite you to subscribe and stay until the very end. Comment below with the city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories of courage and second chances travel across our world. Jacob Callahan hadn't spoken more than 20 words to another living soul in 3 weeks. That was just fine by him. Words cost something out here. Energy, emotion, things a man learned to ration like water in August. He lifted the woman in his arms. She weighed nothing, less than nothing, like someone had been starving her slow. "Grace." He kicked the barn door open with his boot. "Grace, get down here now." His daughter appeared at the top of the hayloft ladder, her mother's quilt wrapped around her shoulders. 11 years old, and already wearing that worried expression that made her look 40. "Papa, what's—" She saw the woman. The child. "Oh, Lord." "Heat water. Get the blankets from the cedar chest. Your mama's old nightgown. Move." Grace didn't ask questions. That was the thing about death, it taught children to act first and wonder later. She scrambled down the ladder and ran for the house, bare feet slapping against frozen ground. Jake carried the woman toward the light of the farmhouse, the child stumbling beside him, her small hand gripping his coat like he might disappear. "What's your name, little one?" "Lily." "That's a pretty name. I'm Jake. That was my daughter Grace. She's gonna help your mama all right." Lily didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on her mother's face, watching for breath, counting heartbeats through the thin fabric of the woman's dress. Inside, Jake laid the woman on the kitchen table. The stove was still warm from supper. Grace had already set water to boil, was pulling blankets from the chest with shaking hands. "She alive?" Grace asked. "Barely." Jake pressed 2 fingers to the woman's neck. Pulse weak but steady. "Get me the smelling salts from the medicine box." The woman's dress was soaked through, frozen in patches where the snow had clung and melted and frozen again. Her lips were blue. Her fingers, when Jake touched them, felt like ice wrapped in paper. But it was the bruises that stopped him cold. Purple spreading across her left cheekbone. Yellow-green shadows around her eye. A split in her lip that had scabbed over, but recently, maybe 2-3 days ago. And when he pushed back her sleeve to check her pulse proper, he saw them. Fingerprints. Burned into her wrist like a brand. Someone had grabbed this woman hard enough to leave marks that would last weeks. "Papa?" Grace stood beside him, smelling salts in hand, her voice very small. "Who did that to her?" "Don't know yet." "Are we gonna find out?" Jake looked at his daughter, looked at the woman on his table, looked at the little girl standing in the doorway, silent and shaking, watching everything with eyes that had seen too much. "Yeah," he said. "We're gonna find out." The smelling salts did their work. The woman's eyes flew open, gray eyes pale as winter sky, and she jerked upright so fast she nearly fell off the table. "Lily!" Her voice cracked. "Where's Lily? Where's my mama?" The little girl ran to her, and the woman caught her daughter in her arms, holding on like the world might end if she let go. "I'm here, baby. I'm here. I got you. I got you." Jake stepped back, giving them space. Grace pressed against his side, and he put a hand on her shoulder without thinking. "Ma'am?" He kept his voice low, gentle, the voice he used for spooked horses. "You're safe here. This is my ranch. My daughter Grace and me were the only ones for miles." The woman's eyes darted around the kitchen, taking in the exits, the windows, the rifle mounted above the fireplace. Calculating, Jake realized. Figuring out if she could run. Where are we? Callahan Creek Ranch, about 15 miles south of Stillwater, Wyoming territory. Wyoming? She breathed the word like a prayer. We made it to Wyoming. Made it from where? The woman didn't answer. She was looking at Grace now, at the way his daughter held the stack of blankets, at the concern on her young face. Your daughter? Yes, ma'am. How old? 11 last month. Something shifted in the woman's expression. Pain, Jake thought. But not physical. Something deeper. She hugged Lily tighter. I'm sorry to intrude. We'll be gone by morning. We just needed... Her voice broke. One night. Please. Just one night out of the cold. Jake had lived alone for 4 years. 4 years of silence and grief and learning to be both mother and father to a daughter who needed more than he knew how to give. He'd built walls around himself, around Grace, around the memory of Martha. Walls that kept the hurt in and the world out. But this woman, beaten, starving, running from something that had hurt her and her child. She was standing at his door asking for one night. And Jake Callahan, for all his faults, had never once turned away someone in need. Grace, he said, show them to the spare room. Get them dry clothes. Your wife's things, the woman started. I couldn't possibly. My wife died 4 years ago, Jake said flatly. Her clothes been sitting in a trunk doing nothing. She'd have wanted them used. The woman stared at him. Something flickered in those gray eyes. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for your bruises. It came out harder than he meant. The woman flinched, and Jake cursed himself silently. I didn't mean... He stopped. Started again. Nobody's gonna hurt you here. Whatever you're running from, whoever gave you those marks, they ain't getting through my door. You understand? The woman studied him for a long moment. Jake had the uncomfortable feeling of being weighed and measured, of being seen in a way he hadn't been seen in years. Clara, she said finally. My name is Clara. This is my daughter Lily. Jake Callahan, you've met Grace. Clara nodded slowly. One night, Mr. Callahan, then we'll be out of your way. We'll talk about that in the morning. Right now you need to get warm before you lose those fingers to frostbite. Grace stepped forward, reaching for Lily's hand. The little girl shrank back, pressing against her mother. It's all right, Grace said softly. I ain't gonna hurt you. You like horses. We got a mare in the barn named Lady. She's real gentle. Maybe tomorrow I can introduce you if you want. Lily looked up at her mother. Clara nodded, and some of the tension eased from the child's shoulders. I like horses, Lily whispered. Yeah. Grace smiled. Me too. Come on, I'll show you where you're gonna sleep. The bed's got 3 quilts on it. My mama made them herself. The girls disappeared down the hallway. Lily's small hand finally tentatively reaching for Grace's. Jake and Clara stood alone in the kitchen, the fire crackling, the wind howling outside. Thank you, Clara said, for not asking questions. I got questions, plenty of them, but they can wait until you've eaten and slept. The questions won't change the answers. Maybe not, but you're swaying on your feet, ma'am. When's the last time you ate? Clara's jaw tightened. Pride Jake recognized, the stubborn kind that made people refuse help even when they were drowning. I don't remember. That long. Jake moved to the stove where Grace had left the remnants of their supper, venison stew, biscuits, strong coffee. Sit, eat. That's an order, not a request. I don't take orders from men. Jake turned surprised. There was steel in that voice. Steel that had been hidden beneath the exhaustion and the fear. Fair enough. Consider it a strong suggestion from someone who don't want to explain to his daughter why the stranger lady collapsed at the breakfast table. The ghost of a smile crossed Clara's face. You always this bossy, Mr. Callahan? Only with stubborn folks who don't know what's good for them. She sat. She ate. Jake watched her try to pace herself, try to eat slowly, but hunger won out and she finished the bowl in minutes. He refilled it without comment, refilled her coffee, set out the last of the biscuits. "You've been running a while," he said. It wasn't a question. 3 weeks. "From where?" "Colorado, Cannon City." "That's near 200 miles. 247. Clara set down her spoon. "We walked some. Rode when we could find kind strangers. Mostly walked." Jake thought about the shoes he'd seen on Lily's feet, worn through at the soles stuffed with newspaper. He thought about Clara's dress patched and repatched until there was more patch than original fabric. "The man who did that to your face, he's following?" Clara's expression shuddered. "He's always following. He doesn't stop. He doesn't give up. He considers us his property, and he doesn't take kindly to his property walking away." "Your husband. The man who claimed to be my husband. The ceremony wasn't legal. The preacher was one of his men dressed up for the occasion. I didn't find out until years later." Jake's hands curled into fists. "How many years?" 8. Clara's voice was hollow. 8 years thinking I was bound to him before God and law. 8 years of... She stopped. "It doesn't matter now." "It matters." "Why?" She looked at him, genuinely curious. "You don't know me. I'm just a stranger who collapsed in your barn. Why should any of it matter to you?" Jake didn't have a good answer for that. Didn't have words for the anger burning in his chest, the protective instinct that had kicked in the moment he saw those bruises. "My wife," he said slowly, "was the kindest woman I ever knew. She used to say a person's character shows in how they treat people who can't do nothing for them. Strangers, children, the helpless." He met Clara's eyes. "Way I see it, you and your girl showed up at my door in the middle of a blizzard, half frozen, running for your lives. What kind of man would I be if I turned you out? A safe one." "Safe ain't always the same as right." Clara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "His name is Silas Weston. He runs a freight business out of Colorado, legitimate on the surface, but underneath he's into everything. Smuggling, gambling, lending money to desperate folks, and then taking everything they own when they can't pay. He has connections, friends in the territorial government, men who owe him favors, or fear what he'll do if they cross him. And he married you how? My father owed him money, gambling debts." Clara's laugh was bitter. "Papa was a good rancher, but a terrible card player. When he died, Silas came to collect. I was 19 alone with nothing but a ranch I was about to lose. Silas offered a solution. Marriage, security, protection." She spat the word. "I didn't know what he was until after the ceremony, until it was too late." Jake felt sick. "The ceremony that wasn't legal. I found the proof 3 months ago. Letters between Silas and the man who played preacher. They joked about it, about how easily I'd been fooled, about how I'd believed every word." Clara's hands trembled around her coffee cup. "I started planning that night. Hiding money, $1 here, 50 cents there. Memorizing train schedules, learning which roads led where, waiting for the right moment. 3 weeks ago. He was away on business. I grabbed Lily and ran. We've been running ever since." Jake absorbed this, turned it over in his mind. "He's got men looking for you. Everywhere. He has connections in every town from Cannon City to Cheyenne. Every time I think we're safe, someone recognizes us. Someone asks questions. Someone sends word. But he hasn't caught you. Not yet." Clara's voice was fierce. "And he won't. I'll die before I let him take Lily back to that house. Before I let him turn her into..." She stopped, swallowed. "He had plans for her. Conversations I overheard. Things he wanted her to learn. To become. Things no child should ever..." She couldn't finish. Jake didn't need her to. "He ain't getting through my door," he said again. "You hear me, Clara? Whatever this man is, whatever he's done, he ain't touching you or your daughter while you're under my roof. You don't know what you're saying. You don't know what he's capable of. I survived 3 years of war. I've faced down rustlers, hostile tribes, men who would have killed me for my horse. I ain't afraid of some Colorado businessman with a grudge." Clara shook her head. "It's not just him. It's his reach, his influence, his willingness to do whatever it takes. He once burned a man's barn to the ground because the man looked at me too long at a church social. Another time he had a shop clerk beaten half to death for being too friendly when I bought fabric." Her voice cracked. "Everyone who's ever tried to help me has suffered for it. Then I'll be the first one who don't. You can't promise that. Watch me." They stared at each other across the kitchen table. The fire crackled, the wind screamed outside, and something passed between them. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of something. The first crack in walls that had stood too long. "Papa!" Grace's voice from the hallway. Jake turned to see his daughter standing there, Lily half hidden behind her. "Lily's asking for her mama, and she won't go to sleep without her." Clara was on her feet instantly, exhaustion forgotten. "I'm coming, baby." She moved past Jake toward the hallway, then stopped, turned back. "Thank you, Mr. Callahan, for the food, the shelter, the—" She hesitated. "The kindness. I'd forgotten what it looked like." "Get some sleep, Clara. We'll talk more in the morning." She nodded and disappeared down the hall with the girls. Jake heard the bedroom door close, heard the soft murmur of voices, heard Lily's frightened whimper fade into silence. He stood alone in his kitchen, the kitchen where Martha had cooked 1,000 meals, where Grace had taken her first steps, where he'd received the news that his wife was dying, and there was nothing anyone could do. He thought about the woman sleeping in his spare room, about the bruises on her face, about the little girl who spoke in whispers and flinched at sudden movements, about the man who was hunting them. He thought about Grace, who hadn't smiled like she'd smiled at Lily in 4 years. He thought about Martha, about what she would say if she were here. And he knew with the certainty of a man who had made his decision and would not unmake it that he was going to help Clara Weston, whatever it took, whatever it cost. Jake walked to the window and stared out at the storm. Snow fell thick and fast, erasing tracks, erasing evidence, buying them time. But time was all it was buying. Eventually the storm would end. Eventually the snow would melt. And eventually Silas Weston would come. Jake checked his rifle, checked the locks on the doors and windows, added more wood to the fire. Then he settled into the chair by the window, watching the darkness waiting for dawn. The blizzard raged for 2 more days. Jake had weathered worse, but not by much. The snow piled up past the windowsills, drifted against the barn doors, turned the ranch into an island in a sea of white. He tunneled out twice a day to feed the horses, check the cattle huddled in the windbreak, make sure nothing had frozen or died in the night. Clara tried to help, tried to insist on it. "I'm not some delicate flower," she said on the second morning, pulling on a borrowed coat. "I grew up on a ranch. I know how to muck stalls and break ice off water troughs." "In those shoes," Jake pointed at the worn-through leather boots she'd arrived in, "you'll lose toes. I'll wrap them in rags. You'll stay inside where it's warm." They glared at each other. Grace and Lily watched from the kitchen table, spoons frozen halfway to their mouths. "Mr. Callahan." "Jake." "Mr. Callahan," Clara repeated, stubborn. "I will not sit idle while you work yourself to exhaustion. I won't be a burden on your household. I won't be useless. I won't—" "Then teach Grace to make biscuits that don't taste like boot leather." The words hung in the air. Grace made an indignant sound. Lily giggled a small surprise sound like she'd forgotten she knew how. Clara stared at him. Something shifted in her face. The anger fading, replaced by something almost like amusement. "Your daughter's biscuits are that bad." "Worse. She burned water last week. Still don't know how." "I did not," Grace protested. "The pot wasn't supposed to have a hole in it." "Excuses, excuses." Clara looked at Grace. looked at Lily, looked at Jake. "Fine," she said. "I'll teach your daughter to cook. But when the storm breaks, I'm helping with the ranch work. That's not negotiable." "Deal." They shook on it. Clara's hand was small in his, but her grip was firm. Strong. The hand of someone who'd worked hard and would work hard again given the chance. The cooking lesson started that afternoon. Jake found reasons to linger in the kitchen, fixing a loose hinge on the cupboard, oiling the pump handle, small tasks that kept him close enough to watch. Clara was patient in a way Jake hadn't expected. When Grace burned the butter, Clara didn't snap or criticize. She just scraped out the pan and started again. When Lily asked to help, Clara found her tasks. She could manage measuring flour, counting eggs, stirring with a wooden spoon almost as big as she was. "My mama taught me this," Clara said, showing Grace how to cut lard into flour. "And her mama taught her. It goes back generations." "What about your mama?" Grace asked. "Is she still... She died when I was 7, fewer from a bad winter. Papa raised me alone after that." "Just like me and Papa. Just like you." Clara's smile was sad. "Your mama, what was she like?" Jake tensed. No one talked about Martha. Not to Grace. Not in front of Grace. Not even in the same room as Grace. It was an unspoken rule. A wall of silence that had protected them both from having to feel too much. But Grace didn't freeze. Didn't shut down. Instead, she tilted her head, considering. "She laughed a lot," Grace said. "Even when things were hard, she'd find something funny about it. She used to sing while she cooked. Not real songs, just made-up ones about whatever she was making. She'd sing about carrots, about bread, about feeding the chickens." Grace smiled. "Papa used to say she was ridiculous, but he always smiled when she did it. She sounds wonderful." She was. Grace's voice wobbled just slightly. "I miss her singing. The house got real quiet after she died." "I understand. Houses do that when someone's missing." Lily looked up from her stirring. "Our house was always quiet. Mama said we had to be quiet or he'd get angry." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Jake saw Clara's face go pale, saw her hands still on the dough. "We don't have to be quiet here," Grace said firmly. "Papa likes noise. He says the quiet drives him crazy." "That's so?" Lily's eyes were wide. "Ask him yourself." Both girls turned to look at Jake, who was suddenly very interested in the cupboard hinge he'd already fixed. "Papa," Grace said pointedly, "tell Lily about the quiet." Jake set down his screwdriver. Looked at Lily, this small, frightened child who'd learned to make herself invisible, to speak in whispers, to take up as little space as possible. "I hate the quiet," he said honestly. "After Martha died, the house went so silent, I thought I'd lose my mind. Used to talk to the horses just to hear someone answer back." He crouched down to Lily's level. "You want to make noise here? You go ahead. Sing, shout, laugh, whatever you want. Only rule is no screaming at the chickens. Gives them headaches and they stop laying eggs." Lily's lips twitched. Almost a smile. "Chickens get headaches. Worst you ever saw. They get all grumpy and give you the stink eye for days." This time, Lily did smile. Just a small one. But it was there. Jake stood, catching Clara's eye. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Something between gratitude and wonder, and something else. Something that made his chest feel too tight. He nodded once and went back to his cupboard. By the second evening, the biscuits were edible. By the third morning, when the storm finally began to ease, they were almost good. "You're a natural," Clara told Grace as they cleaned up the breakfast dishes. "Your mama would be proud." "You think so?" "I know so." Grace glowed. It was the only word for it. Lit up from within like someone had restarted a fire that had gone cold. Jake watched from the doorway, coffee cup in hand, and felt something loosen in his chest. Something that had been tight for 4 years. "Storm's breaking," he said. "Should be able to get to the barn proper by noon." "Good." Clara dried her hands on her apron. Martha's apron. Jake realized the one with the blue flowers that she'd always worn for baking. "I'll help you dig out." "You ain't got boots that fit." "Yes, I know." Clara pointed to the corner where a pair of Martha's old work boots sat waiting. "Grace found them in the trunk last night. Said her mama would have wanted me to have them." Jake looked at his daughter. Grace shrugged, not meeting his eyes. Mama's feet were the same size as Clara's. It just made sense. It did make sense. That was the thing. All of it made sense. Clara in Martha's clothes, cooking Martha's recipes, wearing Martha's apron and boots. And instead of feeling like a betrayal, it felt like the house was waking up again. Like something that had been frozen was finally starting to thaw. "All right," Jake said. "We dig out after lunch. Grace, you and Lily can handle the chickens. By ourselves. You're 11 years old. Reckon you can manage some hens." Grace stood up straighter, pride shining in her eyes. "Yes, sir, we can manage." "That's my girl." They dug out together, Jake and Clara working side by side in the snow. It was hard labor. The drifts were 4 feet deep in places, but Clara kept pace without complaint. Her form was good, Jake noticed. Efficient. The form of someone who'd done this work before. "You weren't lying about growing up on a ranch." "Why would I lie about that?" "Some folks do. Claim knowledge they don't have. I don't have the energy for pretending anymore. Spent 8 years pretending to be happy, pretending to be grateful, pretending I didn't see what was right in front of my face." Clara drove her shovel into the snow. "I'm done pretending." "Good." They worked in silence for a while. The sun had broken through the clouds, making the snow blindingly bright. Jake could hear Grace and Lily in the chicken coop, Grace's voice patient and encouraging, Lily's responses gradually getting louder. "She's good with children," Clara said, following his gaze. "Your daughter. She never had a chance to be. No siblings, no other kids nearby. She's been alone too long. Like you." Jake didn't answer. Didn't need to. "Can I ask you something?" Clara stopped shoveling, leaning on her shovel handle. "Personal." "You can ask. Might not answer." "Fair enough." She took a breath. "Your wife, Martha. How did she die?" The question hit him like a physical blow. No one asked about Martha. No one dared. But Clara stood there, gray eyes, steady waiting. "Childbirth." Jake said the word, scraping his throat like gravel. 4 years ago. The baby came too early. There was bleeding. The doctor couldn't stop it. He looked away toward the mountains. "She died in my arms. The baby died 2 days later. A boy. We were going to call him Thomas after her father." "I'm sorry." "So am I." Jake picked up his shovel, attacking the snow with renewed force. "I wasn't here. I was in town when it happened, getting supplies for the baby's room. By the time I got word, it was almost over." "You blame yourself." "Don't you? For not seeing what your husband was sooner?" Clara flinched, but she didn't back down. "Every single day. But my guilt doesn't help Lily. And your guilt doesn't help Grace." Easy to say. Hard to do, I know. She touched his arm just for a moment, just a brief contact through layers of wool and leather. But here we are. Both of us carrying weight we don't have to carry alone. Maybe that means something. Jake looked at her. At this woman he'd known for 3 days. At the bruises fading from her face. At the strength in her eyes. "Maybe it does," he said. They finished digging out the path to the barn. The horses were fine, glad to see them, nickering for attention. The cattle had survived in the windbreak. Everything was accounted for. Jake stood in the barn doorway, looking out at his land. His ranch. His home. For the first time in 4 years, it didn't feel quite so empty. "Mr. Callahan," Clara's voice behind him. "Jake, there's something I need to tell you." He turned. She was standing in the middle of the barn hay dust, catching the light around her, expression serious. "The storm bought us time," she said. But it won't have stopped him. Silas will have people watching the roads that trains every town within 500 miles. When the snow melts, when the pass is clear, he'll hear we came this way. He'll come. I know. You need to understand what that means. He won't come alone. He'll bring men. Guns. Maybe forged papers claiming Lily is legally his child. He has lawyers' connections, people who owe him. He can make things look legitimate. He can make me look... She swallowed. When I left, I took jewelry. Things he gave me. He'll call it theft. He'll say I kidnapped his daughter. He'll twist every fact until black looks white and up looks down. And you think I'll believe him? I think you barely know me. I think when a well-dressed man with official documents shows up at your door claiming I'm a thief and a lunatic who stole his child, you might have doubts. Jake took a step toward her, then another, until he was close enough to see the fear she was trying to hide. 3 days ago, he said, a woman collapsed at my barn door half dead from cold and exhaustion, still holding her daughter in her arms. A daughter with bruises on her wrists from being grabbed too hard. That woman had run 200 miles in winter to protect that child. She'd given up everything safety comfort her whole life because she heard her husband planning something no mother could accept. He held her gaze. I don't need documents to tell me what I see with my own eyes. I don't need some Colorado businessman to explain what those bruises mean, and I don't need you to convince me of something I already know. And what's that? That you're a good mother, that you've been through hell, and that anyone who wants to take your daughter is going to have to go through me first. Clara's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back, but not before Jake saw. You can't. Can't what? Protect 2 people under my own roof, defend my own land. You forget, ma'am, this is my territory, my ranch. I know every canyon, every ridge, every place a man could hide or be hidden, and I've got friends in Stillwater who've known me 20 years. Friends who'll stand with me if it comes to that. It will come to that. Then let it come. They stood there in the barn sunlight, streaming through the cracks in the walls, horses shuffling in their stalls, the world outside clean and white and waiting. Why? Clara whispered. Why would you risk everything for strangers? Jake thought about it. Thought about the real answer, the one he was only beginning to understand himself. Because my house has been quiet too long, he said. Because my daughter hasn't smiled in years, and now she's laughing in the chicken coop. Because I look at you, and I see someone worth fighting for. He paused. And because when I carried you in from the storm, you never let go of your child, not once. Even unconscious, even half-frozen, you held on. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. Clara stared at him. Something shifted in her expression, the wariness giving way to something else. Something that looked almost like hope. You're a good man, Jake Callahan. I'm a man who made a choice. Ain't nothing more to it than that. From outside, Grace's voice rang clear across the snow. Papa, Clara, Lily found an egg, a real one. She wants to show you. Clara laughed a real laugh, surprised and bright. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Well, she said, I suppose we can't disappoint her. They walked out of the barn together toward the chicken coop, toward the girls, toward whatever was coming. The storm was over. But Jake knew deep in his bones that the real fight was just beginning. The days after the storm settled into a rhythm that felt almost dangerous in its comfort. Clara woke before dawn each morning, moving quiet through the house that wasn't hers, wearing clothes that belonged to a dead woman, feeling like a ghost pretending to be alive. But ghosts didn't make biscuits. Ghosts didn't teach 11-year-olds how to properly season a cast-iron skillet. Ghosts didn't feel their hearts lift when a little girl laughed for the first time in months. Mama, watch! Lily stood in the chicken coop, a fat red hen tucked under her arm like she'd been handling poultry her whole life. Grace says this one's name is Henrietta, and she's the meanest, but she likes me. I see that baby. Clara leaned against the coop door, something warm spreading through her chest. "You've got a gift with animals. Papa says it's because I'm patient." Lily froze the moment the word left her mouth. Her eyes went wide. "I mean, Mr. Callahan. I meant Mr. Callahan." Clara's breath caught. She looked at her daughter, really looked, and saw something she hadn't seen in years. Hope. Tentative and fragile, but there. "It's all right, Lily. You can call him whatever feels right." "But he's not my papa. My papa is—" Lily stopped. Set down the chicken. Her small hands curled into fists at her sides. "He's not my papa. He never was. Real papas don't hurt people." Clara crossed the coop in 3 steps and pulled her daughter into her arms. Lily didn't cry. She'd learned not to cry years ago. But she held on tight, her face pressed against Clara's stomach, her whole body trembling. "No, baby. Real papas don't hurt people. Real papas protect." Like Mr. Callahan. Like Mr. Callahan. They stood there in the chicken coop, surrounded by clucking hens and the smell of hay, and Clara made herself a promise. Whatever happened next, whatever Silas did, Lily would never go back to that house. Never. She'd kill him first. The thought should have shocked her. It didn't. Jake found them an hour later, still in the barn, Clara brushing down Lady, while Lily practiced braiding the mare's mane under Grace's supervision. "Got something to show you," he said. His voice was strange, tight. Clara set down the brush. "Girls, keep working. We'll be right back." She followed Jake out of the barn, around the side of the house, to where a narrow path led up into the foothills. He walked fast, not speaking, and Clara's stomach tightened with each step. "Jake, what is it? What's wrong?" He stopped at the top of a small rise, pointed down into the valley below. Riders, 3 of them, moving slow along the main road maybe 2 miles out. "Could be anyone," Clara said, but her voice shook. "Could be. But they ain't moving like regular travelers. See how they keep stopping." Looking around, Clara saw. Her blood went cold. "They're searching." "Yeah, they are." She grabbed his arm. "The girls. We need to get the girls. We need to—" "Easy." Jake covered her hand with his. "They ain't found us yet. Road goes past the ranch about a mile east. If they're just passing through, they won't even see the house. And if they're not just passing through—" Jake's jaw tightened. "Then we deal with it." They watched the riders for another 10 minutes. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to grab Lily and disappear into the wilderness. But running was what she'd been doing for 3 weeks. Running was exhausting. Running meant Lily never got to braid a horse's mane or call a man papa by accident or laugh at grumpy chickens. "They're turning," Jake said. Clara held her breath. The riders had reached a fork in the road. Left led toward Stillwater. Right curved around toward the backcountry. They went left. Clara's knees nearly buckled with relief. "They're going to town." "For now." "But Clara—" Jake turned to face her. "They'll ask questions. Someone in Stillwater might remember a woman and child passing through. Might remember which direction they went. We didn't pass through Stillwater. We came from the south over the ridge." "Good. That buys us time, but not much." They walked back to the house in silence. Clara's mind raced. 3 riders. Silas wouldn't send 3 men unless he was serious, unless he knew they were close. "Jake, I should leave. Tonight. Take Lily and—" "No. You don't understand. If they find us here, if they trace us to your door—" "I said no." He stopped walking, turned to face her. His eyes were hard, but not cold. Determined. "You run now in winter with a child. Where would you go? How long before you collapse again, before Lily gets sick, before those men catch up to you on open ground with no one to help? At least you'd be safe." "I don't want to be safe. I want to be useful." Jake took a step closer. "Clara, listen to me. I spent 4 years hiding from life, building walls, keeping everyone at arm's length because I was afraid of losing anyone else. And you know what? It didn't help. The loneliness hurt just as bad as the grief. That's different. Is it? You've been running for 3 weeks, running and hiding and looking over your shoulder every second. Has it made you feel safer? Clara opened her mouth, closed it. That's what I thought. Jake's voice softened. Stay. Fight. Let me help you. Let the girls have more time together. Let Lily learn what it feels like to not be afraid. And when Silas comes, then we face him. Together. Clara looked at this man, this stubborn, wounded, impossibly decent man, and felt something crack open in her chest, something she'd kept locked away for 8 years. You're asking me to trust you. I'm asking you to give me a chance to earn it. She should say no. Should grab Lily and run like she'd planned. Should protect him from the storm that was coming. But she was tired. So tired of running. So tired of being alone. All right, she whispered. We stay. Jake nodded once. Good. Now let's get inside before Grace decides we've been kidnapped by wolves. That night after the girls were asleep, Clara found Jake sitting on the porch rifle across his knees watching the darkness. You should rest, she said, settling into the chair beside him. Can't sleep anyway. Might as well be useful. The riders, among other things. Clara pulled her shawl tighter. The night was cold, the stars sharp and bright overhead. Somewhere in the darkness, a wolf howled long and lonely. Can I ask you something? Jake glanced at her. You keep asking permission. Just ask. When we first arrived, when you saw the bruises, you weren't surprised. Not really. You were angry but not shocked. Clara hesitated. Have you seen that before, women who've been hurt? Jake was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. My sister, Ruth. She married a man our parents approved of. Good family. Good prospects. Church-going man. He spat the last words like they tasted bitter. I was 15 when I first saw the marks on her arms. She made excuses, said she was clumsy, said she bruised easy. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. What happened to her? He killed her, said it was an accident, said she fell down the stairs. Jake's hands tightened on the rifle. Everyone believed him. The sheriff, the preacher, our own parents. Said Ruth had always been delicate. Said these things happen. Clara's heart ached. Jake. I was 17. Couldn't prove nothing. Couldn't do nothing. Watched him walk free, marry another woman, move on like Ruth never existed. His voice cracked. That's when I headed west. Couldn't stand looking at the people who'd let her die. Is that why you're helping us? Because of Ruth? Partly. Jake finally looked at her. And partly because I look at you, and I see someone who deserves better. Someone who fought back instead of giving in. Someone who grabbed her daughter and ran when running was the hardest thing she'd ever done. I don't feel brave. I feel terrified. That's what brave is, being terrified and doing it anyway. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars wheel overhead. Clara thought about Ruth, about the countless women like her, about all the bruises hidden under long sleeves and excuses. I'm glad you found us, she said finally. I'm glad we collapsed at your door, and not someone else's. So am I. It wasn't a declaration, it wasn't a promise, but it was something, a foundation, a beginning. Clara went inside to sleep, leaving Jake to his watch. Neither of them noticed the figure on horseback far up in the hills watching the ranch through a spyglass. A week passed. Then 2. The riders didn't return. No one came asking questions. The snow began to melt, revealing patches of brown grass and the first tentative hints of spring. Clara let herself hope. Just a little. Grace and Lily had become inseparable. They did everything together. Chores, lessons, exploring the land around the ranch. Grace taught Lily to ride Lady Patient and encouraging. Lily taught Grace to braid hair in the complicated patterns her grandmother had shown her back before Silas, back when life was simple. They're like sisters, Jake said one evening watching the girls chase each other around the yard. They needed each other. Clara stood beside him on the porch, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. I think we all needed each other. Jake didn't answer, but he shifted slightly, closing that last inch of distance. His shoulder pressed against hers, warm and solid. They stayed like that until the sun went down. The fragile peace shattered 3 days later. Jake had ridden to Stillwater for supplies, leaving Clara and the girls at the ranch with strict instructions to stay inside and keep the doors locked. Clara had rolled her eyes at his overprotectiveness, but followed his orders anyway. She was kneading bread when she heard hoofbeats, multiple horses moving fast. Her hands stilled. Flour dusted the air around her like snow. "Girls," she said, keeping her voice calm. "Go to the back bedroom. Lock the door. Don't come out until I say so." Grace looked up from her book, face pale. "Clara." "What's—" "Now, Grace." Something in her voice must have communicated the urgency. Grace grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her toward the back of the house. Clara heard the bedroom door close, heard the lock click into place. She wiped her hands on her apron and walked to the window. 3 men in the yard. She recognized the horses from a week ago, the riders who'd been searching the valley. One of them dismounted. Tall, lean, eyes like a snake. He walked toward the porch like he owned it. Clara grabbed the shotgun from above the fireplace, checked that it was loaded, positioned herself behind the door. The knock came. 3 sharp raps. "Hello in the house. Anyone home?" Clara didn't answer. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her teeth. "Ma'am, I can see smoke from your chimney. Know someone's in there. We just want to ask a few questions." Silence. The man tried the door, rattled the handle, found it locked. "Ma'am, I'm not looking for trouble. I'm searching for a woman. Blonde hair, late 20s, traveling with a young girl. Have you seen anyone matching that description?" Clara pressed her back against the wall, gripping the shotgun until her knuckles went white. The woman's wanted for theft, kidnapping too. Took her husband's daughter and a considerable amount of jewelry. Her husband's offering a reward for information. $200. $200. Enough to buy a small ranch, enough to tempt almost anyone. Clara heard footsteps on the porch. The man was walking around trying to peer through the windows. "Look, lady, I know you're in there, and I know you're scared, but I ain't here to hurt you. Just need to know if you've seen anything suspicious. That's all." She could hear his voice clearly now, coming from just outside the kitchen window. Close. Too close. "Tell you what. I'm gonna leave my card on your porch. You see anything, hear anything, you get word to me. Name's Emmett Finch. I'm staying at the hotel in Stillwater." Emmett Finch. Clara knew that name. Silas's right hand. The man who made problems disappear. She heard retreating footsteps. Heard the creak of leather as he mounted his horse. "Nice little spread you got here," Finch called out. "Shame if something happened to it. Shame if the owner came home to find it burned to the ground." The horses rode away. Clara stood frozen for a full 5 minutes, shotgun still raised, body trembling. Only when the hoofbeats faded completely did she lower the weapon and sink to the floor. They'd found her. They knew she was here, and they'd threatened to burn the ranch. "Clara." Grace's voice, small and scared, from the hallway. "Can we come out now?" Clara forced herself to stand. Forced her voice to steady. "Yes, sweetheart. You can come out." The girls emerged, Lily clinging to Grace's hand. Both of them looked terrified. "Who were those men?" Grace asked. "No one. Just travelers. They're gone now." "You're lying." Grace's voice was sharper than Clara had ever heard it. "I heard what he said, about burning the ranch, about searching for someone." Clara closed her eyes. This child had already lost so much. How could she possibly explain that more loss might be coming? Grace. "He's looking for you, isn't he? And Lily, the man who hurt you." Clara opened her eyes. Met Grace's gaze. Yes. Are they going to find you? I don't know. Grace was quiet for a moment. Then she walked to the window, peering out at the empty yard. Papa will know what to do, she said firmly. Papa always knows what to do. Clara hoped she was right. Jake returned an hour later, his horse lathered with sweat, his face grim. He must have seen something in Clara's expression, because he was off his horse and across the yard in seconds. What happened? Clara told him. About the riders, about Emmett Finch, about the threat to burn the ranch. Jake listened without interrupting. When she finished, his jaw was set like stone. Finch, he said quietly. I know that name. He's been in Stillwater asking questions. The shopkeeper mentioned it when I picked up supplies. He found us, Jake. He knows we're here. He suspects. That ain't the same as knowing. Jake took her hands in his. Clara, look at me. She looked. This ain't over. Not by a long shot. But we ain't helpless either. I've got friends in this territory. People who owe me favors. People who won't take kindly to outsiders threatening their neighbors. He works for Silas. He's dangerous. So am I. Jake's voice was hard. You think I survived 3 years of war by being soft. Think I built this ranch from nothing by backing down from bullies. Emmett Finch can make all the threats he wants. He tries to burn my home, he'll find out real quick what happens to men who pick fights with the wrong people. Clara wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that everything would be all right, but she'd seen what Silas could do, what his men could do, and she knew that no amount of courage could stop a bullet in the dark. We should leave, she said. Tonight. Take the girls and go where, Clara. There ain't nowhere in this territory that's safer than right here. You run now, you're giving them exactly what they want. You're confirming their suspicions. You're putting yourself and Lily in more danger, not less. Then what do we do? Jake released her hands, walked to the fireplace, picked up his rifle, and checked the action. First, we secure the property. I know every approach to this ranch. We set up lookouts, warning systems. Make sure nobody can get close without us knowing. And then we go to Stillwater. Talk to Sheriff Bridger. Make this official. Clara's blood ran cold. The sheriff, Jake Silas, has connections everywhere. What if? Tom Bridger was my sergeant during the war. We've bled together, saved each other's lives more than once. He ain't gonna take bribes from some Colorado businessman. You're sure? I'm sure. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to insist they run, hide, disappear. But Jake was right. Running was exhausting. Running was what Silas expected. Maybe it was time to stop running. All right, she said. We go to the sheriff. But Jake, she grabbed his arm. If this goes wrong, if Silas comes with papers and lawyers and makes everything look legal, it won't come to that. But if it does, promise me you'll let us go. Promise me you won't sacrifice yourself for us. Jake looked at her for a long moment. Something moved in his eyes, something that made Clara's breath catch. Can't promise that, he said quietly. Wouldn't be worth making if I did. He walked out the door before she could respond. That night, Jake set up a watch rotation. He took the first shift sitting on the porch with his rifle scanning the darkness for movement. Clara couldn't sleep. She lay in the spare bedroom, Lily curled against her side and stared at the ceiling, counting heartbeats, counting breaths, waiting for something terrible to happen. Around midnight, she gave up and went to the kitchen to make tea. Jake appeared in the doorway. Couldn't sleep. Too much on my mind. Yeah, me too. He sat down at the table. Clara brought him tea without asking. He wrapped his hands around the cup but didn't drink. I've been thinking, he said, about what you told me, about your marriage not being legal. What about it? If it's true, if you can prove the ceremony was fraudulent, then Silas has no claim on you or Lily. Not legal, not moral, not any kind. I know, but proving it is the problem. The only evidence was letters between Silas and the fake preacher. Letters I couldn't take when I left. Where are they? His office. In Cannon City, locked in a safe that only he knows the combination to. Jake nodded slowly. And the preacher. The man who performed the ceremony. Dead. Killed in a bar fight 2 years ago. Clara laughed bitterly. Convenient, isn't it? All the witnesses are gone. All the evidence is locked away. It's my word against Silas's, and he's rich, connected, respectable. I'm just a woman who ran. You're not just anything. Jake's voice was sharp. And there's gotta be something we're missing. Some proof. Some witness we haven't thought of. I've been over it 1,000 times. There's nothing. Then we make new evidence. Clara stared at him. What? We make him confess. Get him to admit the marriage was fake in front of witnesses, in front of the sheriff. He'd never do that. He would if he was angry enough. If he thought he had you cornered. If his pride got in the way of his judgment. Jake leaned forward. You told me he's narcissistic, that he can't stand being challenged, being made to look foolish. What if we use that against him? Clara's mind raced. A trap. You want to set a trap. I want to end this. Permanent. No more running. No more looking over your shoulder. I want Silas Weston to walk into a situation he can't buy or threaten his way out of. And I want it on record, legal and proper, so he can never hurt you again. It was insane. Dangerous. The kind of plan that could get them all killed. But it was also the first time Clara had felt anything like hope since she'd left Colorado. How would we do it? She asked. Jake smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who'd spent 3 years fighting for his life and learned a few things about strategy. Leave that to me. The next morning they rode for Stillwater. Grace stayed with Lily at the ranch. Clara had argued against leaving the girls alone, but Jake had arranged for the widow McAllister from the neighboring ranch to come stay. Helen McAllister was a formidable woman in her 50s who'd raised 3 sons and buried 2 husbands. She arrived with a shotgun over her shoulder and a pistol at her hip. Ain't nobody getting past me, she told Clara firmly. You do what you need to do. I'll keep your girls safe. Clara hugged her, a stranger she'd known less than an hour, and meant it. The ride to Stillwater took 3 hours. Jake set a hard pace, and Clara was grateful for it. She needed the speed, the momentum, the sense of doing something instead of waiting. Sheriff Thomas Bridger's office was a small building near the center of town. Jake dismounted first and helped Clara down, his hands lingering on her waist a moment longer than necessary. Let me do the talking first, he said. Tom's a good man, but he's also cautious. He'll need to trust you before he commits. And you think he'll trust you? He'd better. I saved his life twice at Shiloh. He owes me. They walked into the sheriff's office together. Tom Bridger was a big man, broad-shouldered and weathered with silver streaking his dark hair. He looked up from his desk when they entered, and his face split into a genuine grin. Jake Callahan, I'll be damned. Thought you'd turned into a hermit up there on your mountain. Not quite yet. Jake shook the sheriff's hand. Tom, we've got trouble. The kind that needs official attention. Bridger's expression sobered. What kind of trouble? Jake explained. Everything. Clara's escape, Silas Weston, Emmett Finch, the threat to burn the ranch. Bridger listened in silence, his eyes flicking occasionally to Clara, assessing. When Jake finished, the sheriff leaned back in his chair. That's quite a story. It ain't a story, Clara said, speaking for the first time. It's my life, and my daughter's life. Ma'am, I don't doubt your sincerity, but you understand my position. A man's claiming you stole his child and his property. He's got documents, lawyers, connections. Bridger spread his hands. What do you have? Bruises. Clara pulled up her sleeve, revealing the fading fingerprint marks on her wrist. And a daughter who flinches at loud noises. And 8 years of memories I'd give anything to forget. Bridger studied the marks. His expression hardened. Where'd you get those? From the man who claims I'm his wife. From the man whose daughter I supposedly stole. He gave me these when I tried to protect Lily from—" She stopped, swallowed. "From what he wanted to do to her." "What did he want to do?" "I don't know exactly. I just know I heard him talking, planning. And I knew if I stayed another day, I'd lose my daughter to something I couldn't fix." Bridger was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window. "I've been sheriff of this town for 15 years. In that time, I've seen a lot of men claim ownership over women and children who didn't want to be owned. Most of them looked just as respectable as this Silas Weston sounds." He turned back to face them. "Here's what I can do. I'll investigate, quietly. See what I can find out about Weston's business dealings, his reputation, the validity of these documents he claims to have. If there's evidence the marriage was fraudulent, if there's any suggestion of abuse or criminal behavior, I'll act on it." "And in the meantime," Jake asked, "in the meantime, Emmett Finch and his men are visitors in my territory. They cause trouble, threaten property, harm citizens. I'll deal with them. Law's on your side as long as you're on your own land." Clara felt some of the tension drain from her shoulders. It wasn't everything, but it was something. "Thank you, Sheriff." "Don't thank me yet, ma'am. This could get ugly before it gets better." Bridger's eyes were serious. "Men like Weston don't give up easy. They escalate. You need to be prepared for that." "We are," Jake said. "Are you?" Bridger looked at Clara. "Ma'am, I have to ask. If your husband, if Weston shows up with legal documents claiming custody of your daughter, are you prepared to fight that in court? With lawyers? With testimony? It won't be pretty." Clara straightened her spine. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect Lily." "Whatever it takes." Bridger nodded slowly. "Then I reckon you came to the right place." They stayed in Stillwater long enough to file a formal complaint. Clara gave her statement describing everything: the false marriage, the abuse, the threats. The sheriff's deputy wrote it all down in careful script. On the way out of town, Jake stopped at the general store. Clara waited with the horses, watching the street, scanning every face for danger. She was so focused on the crowds that she almost missed him. A man standing in the shadow of the hotel across the street. Tall, lean, eyes like a snake. Emmett Finch. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the sheriff's office they'd just left. His expression was unreadable, but Clara could see his jaw working. He knew. He knew they'd gone to the law. Their eyes met across the street. Finch tipped his hat, a mocking gesture. Then he turned and walked back into the hotel. Clara's blood ran cold. Her hands shook as she gripped the reins. Jake emerged from the store with a bundle of supplies. He took one look at her face and went still. "What?" "Finch. He was watching the sheriff's office. He saw us." Jake's expression hardened. "Good." "Good? How is that good?" "Because now he knows we ain't scared. We ain't running. We're fighting back." Jake swung onto his horse. "Let him run back to his boss with that news. Let Weston know exactly what he's up against." "You're trying to provoke him." "I'm trying to force his hand. Make him act before he's ready. Make him make mistakes." Clara mounted her horse, her mind racing. "And if he comes before we're prepared?" Jake met her eyes. In his gaze, she saw something that should have scared her, but didn't. Determination, fury, protectiveness so fierce it burned. "Then he finds out what happens when you threaten a man's home." They rode hard back to the ranch. Clara's heart pounded the whole way. Whatever was coming, it was coming soon. She just prayed they'd be ready. Helen McAllister met them at the door before they'd even dismounted. Her face was pale, her shotgun gripped white-knuckled in both hands. "Someone was here," she said. Clara's heart stopped. "The girls—" "Safe. Locked in the root cellar like you showed me. But Clara—" Helen's voice shook. "They left something." Jake pushed past her into the house. Clara followed her legs numb, her mind screaming. On the kitchen table lay a doll. Lily's doll. The one Clara had grabbed in the 3 minutes they'd had to pack before fleeing Cannon City. The one Lily slept with every night. The one that had been in the bedroom when they left this morning. Someone had been inside the house. "Where did you find this?" Jake's voice was deadly quiet. "On the porch. Just sitting there propped against the door. I didn't see nobody, didn't hear nothing. Just looked up, and there it was." Clara picked up the doll with trembling hands. There was a note pinned to its dress. 3 words in handwriting she knew better than her own. "I found you." The room tilted. Clara grabbed the table edge to keep from falling. "He was here. Silas was here." "We don't know that," Jake said. "Could have been Finch. Could have been—" "That's his handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. I stared at it for 8 years. Every letter he made me write, every confession he forced out of me. That's him." Clara's voice cracked. "He was in this house. He touched Lily's things. He—" "Clara." Jake's hands were on her shoulders, steadying her. "Look at me. Look at me." She looked. "We ain't gonna panic. That's what he wants. He wants you scared, wants you running. But we ain't gonna give him that. He was inside your home, Jake. He walked through your door like he owned it, and he'll pay for that. I promise you he'll pay." Jake's eyes burned with fury. "But right now we need to get the girls. Can you do that? Can you hold it together long enough to let them know everything's all right?" Clara wanted to scream, wanted to collapse, wanted to grab Lily and run until her legs gave out. Instead, she nodded. "Good. Helen, you see anything else? Anything out of place?" "Nothing I noticed, but I wasn't looking for—" "Check the barn, the chicken coop, anywhere someone could have hidden. I'll get the girls." They found Grace and Lily huddled together in the root cellar, holding hands in the darkness. Lily was crying silently, tears streaming down her face, but she wasn't making a sound. She'd learned that lesson too well. "Mama!" Clara caught her daughter in her arms and held on. Over Lily's shoulder, she saw Grace watching with huge, frightened eyes. "It's all right, baby. We're here. You're safe." "Mrs. McAllister said bad men came. She said we had to hide." "You did exactly right. You were so brave." "Is it him, Mama?" Lily's voice was tiny. "Is it the monster?" Clara's heart shattered. "Don't you worry about him. Papa Jake and I are going to handle everything." Lily pulled back her tear-stained face, confused. "Papa Jake." Clara realized what she'd said. Saw Jake standing in the cellar doorway, heard it too. Saw something flicker across his face. Surprise, then something warmer. Something that looked almost like wonder. "We'll talk about that later," Clara said quickly. "Right now, let's get you both inside where it's warm." That night, no one slept. Jake walked the perimeter of the property 3 times, checking for signs of intrusion. He found them. Boot prints in the mud behind the barn. A broken latch on the back window of the house. Small things. Deliberate things. Signs left to say I was here, and you couldn't stop me. Clara sat with the girls in the main room, the shotgun across her lap, watching the door. Grace read to Lily from one of her mother's old books, her voice steady, despite the fear in her eyes. "He's testing us," Jake said when he finally came inside. "Seeing how we react, how scared we are. We should leave. Tonight. Right now. That's exactly what he wants." "I don't care what he wants. He was in this house. He touched Lily's doll. What if he'd come when the girls were alone? What if Helen hadn't? But she did. And they weren't alone. And we're all still here." Jake crouched in front of her, taking her hands. "Clara, listen to me. Running won't help. He found you in Colorado. He found you in New Mexico. He'll find you anywhere you go. The only way this ends is if we make it end." How do we make it end?" Sheriff Bridger sent word while we were gone. He found something. Something about Weston's business dealings in Denver. Something that might give us leverage." Clara's breath caught. "What kind of something?" "Don't know yet. Tom's being careful. But he asked us to come back to Stillwater tomorrow. Says it's important." Hope flared in Clara's chest. Dangerous hope. The kind that could destroy you if it turned out to be false. And if it's nothing, then we find another way. But we don't give up. Not now. Not when we're this close. Clara looked at her daughter curled against Grace on the settee, finally drifting into exhausted sleep. Looked at this man who'd taken them in, protected them, refused to let them face this alone. "All right," she said. "Tomorrow. We go back to Stillwater." Tomorrow. Jake settled into the chair by the window, rifle across his knees. Clara stayed where she was, shotgun ready, watching over the girls. Neither of them mentioned what she'd called him. Papa Jake. Neither of them needed to. Some things were understood without words. Morning came gray and cold. Jake hitched the wagon while Clara got the girls ready. They were all going this time. No one was staying behind. No one was being left vulnerable. Helen McAllister had returned at dawn with her eldest son Marcus, a broad-shouldered young man with his mother's steel spine. "We'll watch the ranch," Helen said firmly. "Marcus and me both. Ain't nobody getting close without us knowing." "You shouldn't have to." "Neighbors help neighbors. That's how it works out here. Now go do what you need to do. We'll hold down the fort." The ride to Stillwater felt longer than before. Clara sat in the back of the wagon with the girls holding Lily close, scanning the horizon for riders. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every sound made her flinch. Jake drove fast, pushing the horses harder than usual. He didn't speak, but Clara could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes never stopped moving. They reached town just before noon. Sheriff Bridger was waiting for them outside his office, pacing like a caged animal. When he saw the wagon, he strode toward them with urgency. "Good. You're here. Get inside. All of you." "Tom, what?" "Inside. Now." They crowded into the small office. Bridger closed the door. Locked it, pulled the shades. "What's going on?" Jake demanded. "Had a visitor last night. Man named Emmett Finch." Clara's blood ran cold. "He came here. Walked right into my office, bold as brass. Said his employer was on his way. Said there'd been a misunderstanding and he wanted to clear it up before things got complicated." Bridger's jaw tightened. "Then he offered me $500 to look the other way when Weston came to collect his wife and daughter." "What did you say?" "I said I don't take bribes from child beaters. Then I threw him out." Bridger met Clara's eyes. "He didn't take it well. Said I'd regret choosing the wrong side. Said Weston has friends in the territorial government. Said things could get very difficult for a small-town sheriff who didn't know his place. And you're still helping us." "Ma'am, I didn't fight 3 years in a war to come home and bow to bullies. Whatever Weston thinks he's got on me, he's wrong." Bridger pulled a document from his desk. "But that ain't why I asked you here. Look at this." Clara took the paper, read it again. Her hands started shaking. "Where did you get this?" "Got a contact in Denver. Old friend from the Army. He's been digging into Weston's business. Found this in the territorial records." Jake leaned over Clara's shoulder. "What is it?" "It's a marriage certificate," Clara whispered. "Silas Weston to Margaret Ann Holloway. Dated 1871. "That's 2 years before he claims he married you," Bridger said. "And according to Denver records, Margaret Ann Holloway never died. Never divorced. As of 6 months ago, she was living in a sanitarium outside Boulder." The room spun. Clara grabbed the desk to steady herself. "He was already married. When we... The ceremony wasn't just fraudulent because the preacher was fake. It was fraudulent because Weston already had a wife. One, he apparently had committed to an asylum when she became inconvenient." Bridger's voice was grim. "Ma'am, you were never legally married to Silas Weston. You couldn't have been. The law doesn't allow it." Clara couldn't breathe. 8 years. 8 years of believing she was bound to that man. 8 years of thinking she had no way out. And the whole time, Lily. She gasped. What about Lily? If you were never married then, Weston has no legal claim as her father. None. She's yours, Clara. Legally, completely, entirely yours. Lily looked up from where she sat with Grace confusion on her small face. Mama, what's happening? Clara dropped to her knees and pulled her daughter into her arms, held her tight. Let the tears come. Nothing, baby. Everything's all right. Everything's finally all right. Jake's hand came down on her shoulder. Warm. Solid. Real. This changes everything, he said to Bridger. If Weston shows up now, he's got nothing. No claim to Clara. No claim to Lily. If he tries to take them, it's kidnapping. Plain and simple. And the threats, the harassment. Added charges. If I can prove he sent Finch to bribe me, that's corruption. If I can connect him to the break-in at your ranch, that's criminal trespass. Bridger smiled coldly. Silas Weston picked the wrong territory to make enemies in. Clara wiped her eyes, stood up. Something had changed in her chest. The fear was still there, but beneath it something stronger, something fierce. What do we do now? Now we wait. According to Finch, Weston's on his way. Should be here within a day or two. When he arrives, we let him make his move, let him show his hand, and then we take him down. You're using us as bait. I'm using the law as a weapon. There's a difference. Bridger's expression softened. Ma'am, I know you're scared. You've got every right to be. But for the first time, you've got the advantage. You've got proof. You've got witnesses. You've got a sheriff who ain't for sale. Let us help you finish this. Clara looked at Jake. He nodded once. All right, she said. We wait. They didn't have to wait long. Silas Weston rode into Stillwater the next afternoon with 6 men at his back. Clara watched from the window of the hotel room. Bridger had arranged her heart hammering against her ribs. She hadn't seen him in nearly a month. Hadn't been in the same room with him since the night she'd overheard his plans for Lily. But even from a distance, he made her feel small, made her feel trapped. That him! Jake stood beside her close enough that she could feel the heat of his body. That's him. Silas looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, distinguished. Gray at the temples, face, weathered but handsome. He wore an expensive coat and polished boots. Looked like a respectable businessman. A pillar of the community. Looked like everything he wasn't. He's heading for the sheriff's office, Jake said. Let him. Tom knows what to do. They watched as Silas dismounted and strode toward Bridger's door. Watched as he disappeared inside his men waiting in the street. Minutes passed. Clara couldn't breathe. Then the door opened. Silas emerged, his face red with fury. He said something to his men, she couldn't hear what, and they mounted up and rode toward the hotel. He's coming here. He's going to his room. He doesn't know we're here. He'll find out. He always finds out. Jake took her hand, squeezed it. Let him. An hour later, there was a knock at their door. Jake answered it, blocking the entrance with his body. Clara couldn't see who was on the other side, but she could hear the voice. Mr. Callahan, I believe you have something that belongs to me. Silas, smooth and controlled like he was discussing the weather. Don't know what you're talking about. My wife, my daughter, they're in that room. Don't bother denying it. I have eyes everywhere in this town. Funny thing about that, sheriff tells me you ain't got a wife. Already had one when you performed that little ceremony in Cannon City. Makes your claim kind of worthless, don't it? Silence. Then soft and dangerous. I don't know what you've been told, but I've been told you're a bigamist, a fraud, and an abuser. I've been told you threatened to burn my ranch. I've been told you broke into my home and terrorized my daughters. Jake's voice was steel. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to turn around. You're going to get on your horse. And you're gonna ride back to Colorado before Sheriff Bridger decides to arrest you for the dozen crimes he's got documented. Your daughters. Silas laughed, a cold, ugly sound. Is that what you think? That you can just take my family and make them yours? They were never your family. Clara was never your wife, and Lily was never your daughter. The law says so. The evidence says so. The only one who thinks different is you. Another silence. Longer this time. Then Silas spoke and his voice had changed. Dropped the cultured veneer. Revealed something ugly beneath. You think papers matter to me. You think some small-town sheriff scares me. I have connections you can't imagine. Lawyers, politicians, men who owe me favors that would make your head spin. This isn't over because you found some convenient document. This isn't over until I say it's over. No, this is over because Clara says it's over. Because Lily says it's over. Because they're not your property, and they never were. Everything belongs to someone, Mr. Callahan. The only question is, who's strong enough to hold on to it? Then come and try to take them. See what happens. Clara moved before she could stop herself, pushed past Jake, faced Silas for the first time in a month. He looked at her, smiled. That smile that used to make her freeze. That used to make her obey. Clara, you've caused quite a lot of trouble. Good. His smile flickered. She'd surprised him. She never talked back. You know this doesn't end well for you. You know I always win. Not this time. Really? And what makes you think this time is any different? Clara stepped closer. Close enough to see the anger behind his eyes. Close enough to smell his cologne, the same cologne that used to make her nauseous. Because this time I'm not alone. This time I have people who believe me. This time I have proof of what you are. And this time, she took a breath. This time I'm not afraid of you anymore. It was a lie. She was terrified. Could feel her heart pounding, her hands shaking, her whole body screaming at her to run. But she stood her ground. You should be afraid. Silas's voice dropped to a whisper. You should be very afraid. Because when I'm done here, when I've finished destroying everyone who helped you, the sheriff, the rancher, that pathetic little town, I'm going to take you back. Both of you. And I'm going to make you wish you'd never been born. Is that a confession? Sheriff Bridger's voice came from behind Silas. Because I've got 3 witnesses who just heard you threaten to destroy a lawman and kidnap a woman and child. Silas spun around. Bridger stood in the hallway, 2 deputies flanking him. You can't arrest me. I haven't done anything. Just heard you threaten at least 4 people. That's enough to hold you while I verify some documents from Denver. About a wife you forgot to mention. About a sanitarium where she's been locked up for the past 12 years. Bridger's smile was cold. Silas Weston, you're under arrest. This is absurd. My lawyers will. Your lawyers ain't here, and by the time they arrive, I'll have enough charges to keep you locked up until the next century. Bridger nodded to his deputies. Take him. Silas struggled, cursed, threatened. But the deputies were stronger, and in moments, he was in irons being dragged down the hallway toward the jail. He turned at the last moment, locked eyes with Clara. This isn't over, he snarled. This will never be over. Then he was gone. Clara's knees buckled. Jake caught her, held her up. You did it, he murmured against her hair. You faced him. You won. I was terrified. I know. That's what made it brave. She clung to him, shaking, crying, laughing all at once. 8 years of fear. 8 years of silence. 8 years of believing she'd never be free. And now, finally, it was over. But even as relief flooded through her, a cold voice whispered in the back of her mind. He said it wasn't over. He said it would never be over. And Silas Weston always kept his promises. Clara pushed the thought away, held on to Jake, let herself believe just for a moment that the nightmare was finally done. The girls were waiting in the hotel lobby when they came downstairs. Grace ran to her father. Lily ran to Clara. Is it over? Mama, is the monster gone? Clara looked at her daughter. At this brave, beautiful child who'd survived so much. Yes, baby. The monster's gone. Lily smiled. A real smile. The first one Clara had seen since before they ran. Can we go home now? To Papa Jake's ranch? Clara's breath caught. She looked at Jake, saw him watching them, saw the question in his eyes. If that's what you want, she said carefully. If that's where you want home to be. It is. Lily's voice was certain. That's where Grace is. That's where the chickens are. That's where Papa Jake is. She looked up at Clara. That's where you smile, Mama. You never smiled before. Clara pulled her daughter close. Over Lily's head, she met Jake's eyes. Then that's where we'll go, she said. Home. They rode back to the ranch as the sun began to set. The four of them together. A family that had been forged in fear and fire and somehow come out the other side. Clara didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Didn't know if Silas would find a way to wiggle out of his charges. Didn't know if his threats would prove empty or real. But she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't alone. And whatever came next, they would face it together. 3 days of peace. That's all they got. Clara woke on the fourth morning to the sound of hoofbeats. Fast. Urgent. Coming up the road like the devil himself was chasing them. She was out of bed and grabbing the shotgun before her eyes were fully open. Jake met her in the hallway, already dressed, rifle in hand. Stay with the girls. Jake. Stay with the girls. He was out the door before she could argue. Clara ran to the bedroom where Grace and Lily still slept, tangled together under the quilts. She positioned herself between them and the window, shotgun ready, heart pounding. Outside she heard voices. Jake's low and tense. Another man's breathless with urgency. Then Jake's voice sharp with alarm. When? Clara's blood went cold. The bedroom door opened. Jake stood there, his face pale. Get the girls up. Get them dressed. We're leaving in 5 minutes. What happened? Silas escaped, killed a deputy and walked out of the jail 2 hours ago. Tom sent a rider to warn us. Jake's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed him. He's coming, Clara. And this time, he ain't coming to talk. The world tilted. Clara grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. How did he? Doesn't matter how. What matters is, he's out, he's armed, and he's got nothing left to lose. Jake crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed her shoulders. We need to move, now. Every second we waste is a second closer he gets. Clara forced herself to breathe, forced herself to think. Where do we go? Town, sheriff's office. It's the safest place until we can figure out our next move. He'll expect that. Then he'll have to go through Tom and his deputies to get to you. Better than being out here alone. Clara nodded, turned to the bed, shook Grace's shoulder. Wake up, sweetheart. We need to go. Grace's eyes opened, instantly alert. She'd learned to wake fast in the years since her mother died. Learned that mornings could bring crisis as easily as calm. What's wrong? I'll explain on the way. Get dressed. Help Lily. They were ready in 4 minutes. Clara threw supplies into a bag while Jake hitched the horses. The girls emerged pale and scared, but silent. They'd learned that silence could mean survival. Into the wagon. Under the blankets. Don't come up until I say so. Grace took Lily's hand and led her to the wagon bed. They disappeared under the pile of quilts, 2 small lumps that could be anything. Supplies, feed bags, nothing worth investigating. Clara climbed onto the seat beside Jake. He snapped the reins. They flew down the road toward Stillwater. Clara kept her eyes on the horizon, scanning for riders, for dust, for any sign of pursuit. The shotgun lay across her lap, cold and heavy. How far? 3 hours if we push hard. Can the horses make it? They'll have to. They rode in tense silence. Every bend in the road made Clara's heart stop. Every stand of trees could hide an ambush. Every shadow could be Silas waiting. An hour passed. Then 2. They were maybe 5 miles from town when Jake pulled up short. "What? What is it?" Jake pointed. Ahead, blocking the road, sat a single rider on a black horse, Emmett Finch. "Turn around," Clara hissed. "Go back." "Can't. Look behind us." Clara twisted in her seat. 2 more riders had emerged from the tree line, cutting off their retreat. They were trapped. "Take the reins." Jake handed them to Clara and reached for his rifle. "When I say go, you drive straight at Finch. Don't stop. Don't slow down. Just get to town." "Jake, I can't leave you." "You can and you will. Those girls need you. They don't need me." His eyes met hers. "Promise me, Clara. Promise me you'll get them to safety." "I promise." "Then get ready." Jake stood up in the wagon bed, rifle raised. His voice rang out across the distance. "Emmett Finch, you've got about 10 seconds to clear that road before I put a bullet between your eyes." Finch didn't move. His voice carried back calm and mocking. Now, Mr. Callahan, no need for violence. Mr. Weston just wants to talk." "Mr. Weston killed a lawman and escaped custody. Talking time is over." That deputy's death was unfortunate, a misunderstanding. Mr. Weston is prepared to offer generous compensation to the man's family. He's a reasonable man. Reasonable men don't beat their wives, don't terrorize children, don't hunt women across 2 territories. Mr. Weston simply wants what's his. Surely you can understand that. A man's family belongs with him. Clara ain't his wife, never was. And Lily ain't his daughter. The law already decided that. Finch sighed, a theatrical sound. "The law is flexible, Mr. Callahan, especially when applied by flexible men. I'm sure Sheriff Bridger could be convinced to reconsider his position, given the right incentive. Tom Bridger can't be bought. Everyone can be bought. It's just a matter of finding the right price." Finch nudged his horse forward a few steps. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to hand over Mrs. Weston and the girl. In exchange, Mr. Weston will forget this whole unpleasant business. No charges against you, no consequences for the sheriff. Everyone walks away. And if I refuse, then things get unpleasant." Finch's voice hardened. "For you, for your daughter, for everyone in that wagon." Clara's grip tightened on the reins. Under the blankets, she heard Lily whimper, heard Grace whisper something soothing. "Here's my counteroffer," Jake said. "You and your boys ride away, right now, and I don't shoot you where you sit." Bold words from a man outnumbered 3-1. "I've faced worse odds." "Have you?" Finch smiled. That snake's smile. "Let me tell you what I've learned about you, Mr. Callahan. You lost your wife 4 years ago. Childbirth. The baby died too. You've been alone ever since, raising that daughter of yours in this empty house, going through the motions of living, but never really alive." He tilted his head. "Then Clara showed up, gave you something to fight for, something to feel. And now you think you're some kind of hero, think you can protect her from the big bad wolf. Get to the point. The point is, you're not a hero. You're just a lonely man who found a woman desperate enough to need him, and when Mr. Weston takes her back, and he will take her back, you'll be alone again, just like before. Only this time, you'll know exactly what you lost." Jake's rifle didn't waver. "You done talking?" "Almost." Finch raised his hand. A signal. "Mr. Weston wants me to give you one more chance. Hand them over now and you live. Your daughter lives. Everyone goes home happy. And if I don't, then Mr. Weston will take what he wants, and he'll make sure you watch while he does it." The air went still. Clara could feel Jake's fury radiating off him like heat from a stove. "Tell your boss something for me," Jake said quietly. "Tell him I'm coming for him. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. And when I find him, I'm going to make him answer for every bruise he put on Clara, every tear Lily cried, every night they spent running and hiding and afraid. Threats won't—" "It ain't a threat, it's a promise." Jake raised his rifle. "Now get off my road." Finch's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then from somewhere behind them came the sound of more hoofbeats. Many more. Coming fast. Finch's head snapped toward the sound. His expression shifted. Uncertainty. Fear. Over the rise came Sheriff Bridger and 6 deputies riding hard. "Emmett Finch," Bridger's voice boomed across the distance. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder and aiding a fugitive. Surrender now, or we'll take you by force." Finch looked at his 2 companions, looked at the approaching lawmen, did the math. "This isn't over," he said to Jake. Then he wheeled his horse and rode hard for the hills, his men following. Bridger and his deputies split up. 3 gave chase. 3 rode toward the wagon. Clara sagged with relief. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the reins. "You all right?" Bridger pulled up alongside them, his face grim. "We're alive," Jake said. "That counts for something. Figured you'd be heading for town when I got word Weston escaped. Sent men to patrol the main road." Bridger's jaw tightened. "Should have sent more. Should have caught those bastards." "You saved us. That's what matters." "Ain't saved you yet. Weston's still out there, and now he knows we're onto him." Bridger looked at Clara. "Ma'am, we need to get you somewhere safe, somewhere he can't find. Where he found us at Jake's ranch. He'll find us anywhere. Maybe not everywhere." Bridger lowered his voice. "I've got a place. Cabin up in the mountains. Used it during the war when things got hot. Nobody knows about it except me and a few trusted men. You could hide there until we catch Weston. And how long will that take? Could be days. Could be weeks. But ma'am, it's the best option we've got." Clara looked at Jake, saw the conflict in his eyes. "The girls," she said. "Grace and Lily. They've been through so much already. I can't ask them to—" "You're not asking." Grace's voice came from under the blankets. Her head emerged pale but determined. "I'm coming with you, wherever you go." "Grace." "I already lost one mama. I ain't losing another one." Grace's eyes met Clara's. "You're family now. We stick together." Clara's throat tightened. She couldn't speak. "The girl's got a point," Bridger said. "Safer if you all stay together. Easier to protect one location than 2. "What about the ranch?" Jake asked. "I can't just abandon it. Helen McAllister already volunteered to watch it. Her and her boys. They'll keep things running until you get back." Jake was quiet for a long moment. Clara watched him struggle with the decision. Leave his home. Leave everything he'd built. Run and hide like a scared rabbit. Or protect the people who'd become his family. "How long until we can leave?" "Hour or 2. Need to gather supplies, get the horses fresh." Bridger's expression softened. "Jake, I know this ain't easy, but it's the right call. We'll get Weston. I promise you that. But we can't do it if we're worrying about keeping Clara and the girls safe at the same time." "All right." Jake's voice was heavy. "We'll go to your cabin. But Tom, find him. Find him fast. I've got some things I need to say to Silas Weston. Things that need to be said in person." "I'll do my best." They regrouped in Stillwater. Clara got the girls fed and rested while Jake and Bridger gathered supplies. The cabin was a 2-day ride into the mountains through rough terrain that would be hard to follow. Hard, but not impossible. Clara found Jake in the stable saddling fresh horses. His movements were tense, jerky, angry. "Talk to me," she said. "Nothing to talk about." "Jake?" He stopped, dropped his head. His shoulders shook with something that might have been rage or might have been despair. "I was supposed to protect you. That was the deal. I promised I'd keep you safe and I failed. Twice now. First at the ranch, then on the road. If Tom hadn't showed up. But he did. But what if he hadn't? What if Finch had—" Jake's voice cracked. "I can't lose anyone else, Clara. I can't. I barely survived losing Martha. If something happened to you or the girls, I'd—" "Jake!" Clara crossed to him, took his face in her hands, made him look at her. Listen to me. You haven't failed anyone. You've done everything right. Everything. You took us in when you didn't have to. Protected us when no one else would. Stood up to Silas and Finch when most men would have handed us over and looked the other way. It ain't enough. It's everything. You're everything. She held his gaze, willing him to believe her. Lily calls you Papa Jake. Grace calls me family. We're not just people you're protecting anymore. We're yours. And you're ours. That's what matters. That's what we fight for. Jake stared at her. Something broke open in his expression. The walls he'd built so carefully, the distance he'd maintained even as they grew closer, all of it crumbled. I love you. The words came out hoarse, raw. I didn't mean for it to happen. Didn't want it to happen. But somewhere between that first night and now I fell in love with you, Clara. And it terrifies me more than anything Silas Weston could do. Clara's heart stopped. Then started again, pounding so hard she could barely breathe. Why does it terrify you? Because loving someone means you can lose them. And I've already lost so much. So have I. Clara stepped closer, close enough to feel his breath on her face. I spent 8 years learning not to love, learning to survive instead of live, building walls so high I thought no one would ever get through. She touched his chest, felt his heart racing beneath her palm. But you got through. You and Grace. You showed me what a real home looks like, what a real family feels like. And I can't go back to the way things were. I won't. Clara, I love you too, Jake. God help me, I love you too. She kissed him. Or he kissed her. It didn't matter who moved first. What mattered was the feeling, the warmth, the rightness, the sense of finally coming home. When they broke apart, both of them were crying. Well, Jake said, his voice rough with emotion. Guess that settles that. Guess it does. When this is over, when Weston's caught and the girls are safe. Ask me then. Ask me whatever you want to ask me, and I'll say yes. You don't even know what I'm gonna ask? Doesn't matter. The answer's yes. Jake laughed, a real laugh. The first one Clara had heard from him that wasn't tinged with sadness. You're a stubborn woman, Clara Weston. Clara Callahan. Or it will be. Soon as you get around to asking. I'll hold you to that. They finished saddling the horses together, working in comfortable silence, stealing glances that meant more than words ever could. The ride to the cabin took 2 days, just as Bridger had promised. The terrain was brutal, steep climbs and narrow passes that forced them to dismount and lead the horses on foot. But the difficulty meant safety. No one could follow this path without being seen. The girls handled it better than Clara expected. Grace was stoic, determined, leading Lily by the hand through the rough patches. Lily was quiet, but brave, only crying once when she slipped on a rock and scraped her knee. Almost there, Jake said, as they crested the final ridge. Just over that rise. The cabin was small but solid. Built into the side of the mountain, hidden by trees, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Inside it was sparse but clean. 2 beds, a fireplace, a small table. Everything they needed to survive. We'll stay here until Tom sends word, Jake said, setting down their supplies. Could be days, could be weeks. But we'll be safe. And then what? Then we go home, back to the ranch. Back to our lives. He pulled Clara close. Back to being a family. Clara leaned into him, letting herself believe, letting herself hope. For 3 days, they almost forgot they were hiding. The cabin became a refuge, a place where the outside world couldn't reach them. Jake taught the girls to fish in the stream nearby. Clara cooked meals over the fire, filling the small space with warmth and the smell of food. They played games, told stories, laughed. It almost felt normal. On the 4th day, Jake went to check the perimeter. A habit he'd developed, walking the area around the cabin twice a day, looking for signs of intrusion. He'd been gone an hour, when Clara heard the gunshot. She was on her feet, instantly grabbing the rifle, pushing the girls toward the back of the cabin. "Stay here. Don't come out no matter what." "Clara." Grace's voice was terrified. "Promise me, Grace. Keep Lily safe. That's your job now." "I promise." Clara ran. Through the trees toward the sound, heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. She found Jake at the edge of the clearing. He was on the ground, not moving. Standing over him, gun raised, was Silas Weston. "Hello, Clara." His voice was calm, pleasant, like they were meeting at a church social. "I've been looking everywhere for you." Clara raised the rifle, aimed at his chest. "Step away from him." "Or what? You'll shoot me." Silas laughed. "We both know you don't have that in you. You're weak, Clara. Always have been. That's why you needed me." "I never needed you. I survived you. There's a difference." "Is there?" Silas nudged Jake's body with his boot. "Your hero isn't looking too heroic right now. Went down with one shot. Didn't even see me coming." Clara's vision blurred with tears, with rage. "If you killed him, he's alive. For now. Whether he stays that way depends entirely on you." "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted. My wife, my daughter, my property." Silas's eyes glittered with malice. "Come with me now willingly, and I'll let him live. Let the girls live. Everyone walks away." "And if I refuse? Then I put another bullet in your rancher. Then I find those girls hiding in the cabin. Then I make you watch while I show them what happens to people who defy me." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And then I take you anyway. Because you're mine, Clara. You've always been mine. And nothing, not distance, not lawmen, not pathetic cowboys will ever change that." Clara's finger tightened on the trigger. She could do it. One shot. End this nightmare forever. But if she missed, if she hesitated, Jake was right there. The girls were alone. "Clock's ticking, Clara. What's it gonna be?" She looked at Jake. At the man she loved. The man who'd given her everything. Then she looked at Silas. At the monster who'd taken everything else. "All right," she whispered. "I'll come with you." "Clara, no!" Jake's voice, weak but desperate. He was awake, had heard everything. "Drop the rifle," Silas ordered. Clara lowered the weapon, set it on the ground. "Now walk toward me. Slowly, hands where I can see them." Clara took a step, then another. "Clara, don't—" Jake tried to rise, collapsed. "Shut up!" Silas kicked him, hard. Jake groaned and went still. Clara kept walking. 10 feet. 5 feet. Close enough to see the madness in Silas's eyes. The triumph. Close enough to reach him. "Good girl," Silas purred. "I knew you'd see reason eventually." "There's just one thing," Clara said. "What's that?" "I'm not that scared girl anymore. Not the woman who obeyed because she didn't know she had a choice. I'm stronger now. Braver. And I will never let you touch my daughter again." She moved, faster than Silas expected. Her hand found the knife at her belt. Jake's knife, the one he'd given her for protection. She drove it upward toward his chest. Silas twisted. The blade caught his arm instead. He screamed. The gun went off wild, missing everything. They fell together, struggling. Clara fought with everything she had. Every ounce of rage. Every year of fear. Every bruise, every slap, every moment of terror. The knife came free. Silas's hands found her throat. Squeezed. Darkness crept at the edges of her vision. Then another gunshot. Silas jerked. His grip loosened. He looked down at his chest, at the red blooming there, with an expression of pure disbelief. Behind him stood Jake, Clara's rifle in his hands, blood streaming from a wound at his temple. "You," Silas whispered. "Should have made sure I was dead." Jake's voice was cold, final. "My mistake was thinking you'd go easy. Won't make it again." Silas collapsed. Clara scrambled backward, gasping for air, her throat on fire. Jake dropped the rifle and crawled toward her, gathering her in his arms. "Clara! Clara, talk to me. Are you—" "I'm okay." Her voice was ragged, broken. "I'm okay. The girls—" "Safe. Still in the cabin." "And Silas?" They both looked at the body, at the man who'd haunted Clara's nightmares for 8 years. He wasn't moving. "It's over," Jake said. "It's really over." Clara buried her face against his chest and sobbed. Relief, terror, joy. Everything she'd been holding back for weeks, months, years, all of it poured out. Jake held her through it. Held her until the tears stopped. Held her until she could breathe again. "Let's go home," she whispered. "Home." Jake agreed. "I like the sound of that." The ride back to Stillwater took 2 days. Jake rode with a bandage wrapped around his head, refusing to rest despite Clara's protests. The girls sat together in the wagon bed, Lily's head on Grace's shoulder, both of them sleeping, the exhausted sleep of children who'd seen too much. Silas's body lay wrapped in canvas behind them. Evidence, Bridger had said. Proof that justice had been served. Clara didn't look at it. Couldn't. Even dead, the sight of him made her stomach clench with old fear. But the fear was different now. Duller. Less sharp. Like a wound that had finally started to heal. "You're quiet," Jake said. "Thinking." "About what?" Clara looked at him. At this man who'd nearly died protecting her. Who'd killed to keep her safe. Who loved her in a way she'd never believed anyone could. About what comes next. "What do you want to come next? You already know." "Maybe I want to hear you say it." Clara smiled, the first real smile since the cabin. "I want to go home. I want to watch the girls grow up together. I want to wake up every morning knowing I'm safe." She reached over and took his hand. "I want to spend the rest of my life with you, Jake Callahan, if you'll have me." Jake's fingers tightened around hers. "I'll have you. Every day. Forever." "That's a long time. Not long enough." They rode into Stillwater as the sun began to set. The town had changed since they'd left. Word of Silas's escape had spread, and then word of his death. People lined the streets watching the wagon pass, their faces a mixture of curiosity and relief. Sheriff Bridger met them outside his office. His expression was grim but satisfied. "It's done then. It's done." Jake helped Clara down from the wagon. "He found us at the cabin, attacked, didn't leave us much choice." "Figured as much." Bridger walked to the back of the wagon, lifted the canvas, confirmed what lay beneath. "I'll handle the paperwork. Make sure everything's legal and proper. You two just focus on getting home." That's it. Clara couldn't believe it was so simple. After everything he did, all the people he hurt, it just ends. "Ma'am, sometimes justice ain't pretty. Sometimes it ain't clean. But your girls are safe. You're safe. That monster won't hurt anyone ever again." Bridger's voice softened. "That's what matters. The rest is just paperwork." Clara nodded slowly. He was right. The details didn't matter. The outcome did. "Thank you, Sheriff, for everything." "Just doing my job, ma'am. Though I gotta say—" He glanced at Jake. "This one here did most of the heavy lifting. You picked yourself a good man." "I know." They spent the night in town. Dr. Crane examined Jake's wound, declared it superficial, ordered him to rest. Jake ignored the order, of course, but he did let Clara change his bandages, sitting patient and still while she worked. "You scared me," she said quietly. "When I saw you on the ground, I thought, I know. I'm sorry." "Don't be sorry, just don't do it again." "Can't promise that." Jake caught her hand, pressed it to his chest. "I'd die for you, Clara, for you and the girls, without hesitation." I'd rather you live for us. That too. Both. Whatever you need. Clara leaned forward and kissed him. Soft, gentle, a promise of all the kisses to come. Gross, Grace's voice came from the doorway. You two are gross. You're supposed to be asleep, Jake said without pulling away. Can't sleep. Lily's having nightmares again. Clara sighed and stood. I'll go to her. No. Grace stepped into the room, her expression serious beyond her years. I'll stay with her. I just wanted to make sure you two were okay. We're okay, sweetheart. Good. Grace hesitated, then crossed the room and hugged them both. A fierce, tight hug that said everything words couldn't. I'm glad you're my family now. Both of you. Clara's eyes filled with tears. So am I, Grace. So am I. They returned to the ranch 3 days later. Helen McAllister had kept the place running just as she'd promised. The animals were fed the fences, mended the house clean and warm. Welcome home, Helen said as they pulled up in the wagon. Been waiting for you. Clara looked at the ranch house, at the barn where she'd collapsed that first night, at the chicken coop where Lily had learned to laugh again, at the porch where she'd sat with Jake under the stars, talking about nothing and everything. Home. It really did feel like home now. Thank you, Helen, for everything. Neighbors help neighbors. That's the way it works. Helen's eyes crinkled with warmth. Now get inside. I made supper. Figured you'd be hungry after all that traveling. They ate together that night. All of them. Helen and her sons, Jake and Clara Grace, and Lily. The table was crowded, the conversation loud, the laughter real. Clara couldn't remember the last time she'd felt so full. Not just of food, but of life. Of joy. Of hope. After the McAllisters left, after the girls were tucked into bed, Clara found Jake on the porch. He was staring out at the darkness, his expression thoughtful. What are you thinking about? The future. He turned to look at her. Our future. What about it? I've been thinking about what you said, about wanting to spend the rest of your life with me. I meant it. I know you did. That's why. He reached into his pocket, pulled out something small. I've been carrying this around for weeks, waiting for the right moment. Kept thinking there'd be a better time, a quieter time, a time when we weren't running for our lives. Clara's breath caught. Jake. But I realized something. There's never going to be a perfect moment. Life doesn't work that way. There's always going to be storms and trouble and things that try to tear us apart. He opened his hand. A simple gold band lay in his palm. This was Martha's. She'd want you to have it. She'd want you to know that I'm not replacing her. I'm just making room for more love. Tears streamed down Clara's face. Yes. I haven't asked yet. I don't care. The answer is yes. Jake laughed, that beautiful, rare laugh that she'd come to treasure. Clara Weston, will you marry me proper this time? Legal, real, in front of God and everyone we care about. Yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. I love you, he whispered. I love you too. They held each other on the porch under the stars, and Clara finally let herself believe that the nightmare was truly over, that this life, this love was real. The wedding took place 3 weeks later. Not a quiet affair in a judge's parlor, but a real celebration. The whole town of Stillwater turned out. Helen McAllister organized the food. The church ladies decorated. Sheriff Bridger agreed to stand as Jake's witness. Clara wore a dress that Martha Morrison had made for her. Blue, like the first dress she'd worn in Jake's house. New, because this was a new beginning. Grace and Lily served as her attendants. Both girls wore white, their hair braided with flowers, their faces glowing with happiness. You look beautiful, Mama, Lily whispered as they waited for the ceremony to begin. Mama. Not Clara. Not Mrs. Weston. Mama. Clara's heart swelled. So do you, baby. So do you. The ceremony was simple, traditional. The words that had been spoken millions of times by millions of couples starting their lives together. But when the Reverend asked if anyone objected, Clara held her breath. Old habits, old fears, silence. Beautiful, perfect silence. Then by the power vested in me by God and the territory of Wyoming, I pronounce you husband and wife. The Reverend smiled. You may kiss your bride. Jake kissed her. The crowd cheered. Grace and Lily bounced with excitement, and Clara felt something she hadn't felt in 8 years. Free. Completely, utterly free. The celebration lasted well into the evening. There was food and music and dancing. Jake danced with Clara, then with Grace, then with Lily, spinning each of them around until they were dizzy with laughter. Thank you, Clara said during a quiet moment, for all of this. Thank yourself. You're the one who survived, who fought back, who never gave up. I gave up plenty of times. You just wouldn't let me stay down. That's what family does. Family. The word still felt new, still felt precious. Can I call you Papa now? Lily appeared at Jake's elbow, her face serious. For real, not just by accident. Jake crouched down to her level. You can call me whatever you want, Lily. Papa Jake. Hey, you doesn't matter to me. What matters is that you know I love you, that you're my daughter now, just like Grace, that nothing and no one will ever change that. Lily threw her arms around his neck. I love you too, Papa. Clara watched them, tears streaming down her face. Happy tears, the best kind. Grace sidled up beside her. You're crying again. I know. You cry a lot now, more than you used to. I used to not let myself feel anything. It was safer that way. And now, Clara looked at her family. At Jake holding Lily. At Grace, standing beside her, tall and brave and so much like her mother. Now I feel everything, and it's worth it. Every tear, every laugh, every moment of fear and joy and love. It's all worth it. Grace took her hand, squeezed it. I'm glad you came to our barn that night. I'm glad the storm brought you. So am I, sweetheart. So am I. The months that followed were the happiest of Clara's life. Spring came, melting the last of the snow, bringing new life to the ranch. The mare lady gave birth to a healthy foal. The girls named her Hope. Summer brought long days of work and play. Jake taught Lily to ride. Grace taught Clara to make her grandmother's apple pie. They worked the ranch together side by side, building something that would last. Fall brought the harvest. Clara canned vegetables and preserved meat, filling the cellar with provisions for winter. The house was full of good smells and good sounds and good people. And through it all, Clara kept waiting for something to go wrong, for the other shoe to drop, for the happiness to shatter. It didn't. You're still waiting, Jake said one evening as they sat on the porch watching the girls catch fireflies in the yard. What? For disaster. I can see it in your eyes. That little flicker of fear, like you don't quite believe this is real. Clara sighed. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who knows you. I'm trying, I really am, but after so many years of... I know. Jake took her hand. It takes time. Healing ain't linear. Some days you'll feel fine. Other days the fear will come back. That's okay. That's normal. When does it stop? Maybe never completely. But it gets better. I promise you that. One day you'll wake up and realize you forgot to be afraid. And then it'll happen again. And again. Until the fear is just a memory. Something that happened to a different person in a different life. Clara leaned her head on his shoulder. You sound like you know from experience. I do. After Martha died after the baby, I thought I'd never stop hurting. Thought the grief would swallow me whole. But it didn't. It faded. Slowly. Until one day I could think about her and smile instead of cry. Do you still think about her? Every day. But it doesn't hurt anymore. It just reminds me of what I had, of what I lost, of what I found again. He kissed the top of her head. She'd have liked you, you know, Martha. She'd have been glad I found someone to share my life with." "You think so?" "I know so. She was generous that way. Always said love wasn't a limited thing, that the heart could hold as much as you let it." Clara thought about that, about the heart's capacity for love, for pain, for healing. I think she was right. Winter came again, bringing snow and cold and long nights by the fire. But this winter was different. This winter Clara wasn't running, wasn't hiding, wasn't afraid. She was home. On Christmas morning the girls woke early, bouncing with excitement. There were presents under the small tree Jake had cut, nothing fancy, but chosen with love. A new doll for Lily to replace the one Silas had stolen. A set of books for Grace, who'd developed a passion for reading. New boots for both girls, proper ones that would keep their feet warm and dry. And for Clara, a necklace. Simple silver with a small pendant in the shape of a heart. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Open it." She did. Inside, tiny and perfect, was a photograph. 4 faces. Jake and Clara. Grace and Lily. A family. "Had it made in town," Jake said. "Figured you should have something to remind you, on the hard days, when the fear comes back." Clara clutched the necklace to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "I don't need a reminder," she said. "I have the real thing. Every day. Right here." "Then consider it a celebration. Of how far we've come. Of how far we still get to go." She kissed him, deep and true and full of gratitude. "Thank you. For everything. For saving us. For loving us. For giving us a home. You gave me just as much. Maybe more. You brought this house back to life. You gave Grace a sister. You gave me a reason to wake up in the morning." Jake's voice was rough with emotion. "Before you came, I was just surviving, going through the motions. Now I'm living. Really living. For the first time in years." "We saved each other," Clara said. "That's how it works. That's what love is." "Is that what this is? Love? The best kind. The kind that grows from pain. That's forged in fire. That survives everything life throws at it and comes out stronger." Jake smiled. That rare, beautiful smile that she'd fallen in love with all those months ago. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." Spring came again, and with it, news that changed everything. Clara was pregnant. She told Jake on a warm April evening, both of them sitting on the porch watching the girls play with Hope the foal. "You're sure?" "Dr. Crane confirmed it yesterday." Jake stared at her. His face went through 100 emotions in 10 seconds. Shock, fear, joy, more fear, more joy. "A baby," he whispered. "We're having a baby. We're having a baby." Do you want?" "Yes." Clara took his hand, pressed it to her still flat stomach. "I want this. I want everything with you. The good parts and the hard parts. The sleepless nights and the first smiles. All of it. But after everything you went through, everything Silas, this isn't about him. This is about us, about our family, about building something new and beautiful from everything that came before." Clara's voice was fierce. "I spent 8 years letting fear control my life. I won't let it control this too. This baby, our baby, will know nothing but love, nothing but safety, nothing but the family we've built together." Jake was crying. She'd never seen him cry before. Not when he talked about Martha, not when Silas had nearly killed him, but now, faced with the prospect of new life, tears streamed down his weathered face. "I love you," he said. "I love you so much. I love you too, forever." He pulled her into his arms and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world, because to him she was. The girls took the news with wild excitement. Grace immediately started making plans for the nursery. Lily insisted the baby would be a girl and should be named Flower, or possibly Unicorn. "We are not naming our child Unicorn," Jake said firmly. What about Rainbow? Also no. You're no fun, Papa. I'm extremely fun, just not about names. Clara laughed, watching them argue, her hand resting on her stomach. Inside her, a new life was growing. A new beginning. Proof that even the darkest stories could have happy endings. The baby came in December, right on schedule. A boy. Healthy and strong, with his father's dark hair and his mother's gray eyes. They named him Thomas, after Martha's father. A bridge between the past and the future. Between what was lost and what was found. He's perfect, Grace whispered, cradling her baby brother for the first time. He's so tiny, Lily added, peering at him with wonder. Was I ever that tiny? Even tinier, Clara said. Hard to believe, isn't it? Jake stood behind them all, his arms wrapped around Clara, watching his family with an expression of pure, unfiltered joy. 5 of us now, he said. A proper family. A proper family, Clara agreed. Outside, snow was falling. Soft and white and peaceful. Inside, the fire crackled, the baby slept, and 4 people who had found each other through storm and struggle finally knew the meaning of home. Years passed. Good years. Years of laughter and work and ordinary joy. Thomas grew strong and wild, chasing his sisters around the ranch, getting into trouble, filling the house with noise and energy. Grace grew into a young woman, smart and capable, already talking about becoming a teacher. Lily blossomed into a confident girl who had no memory of fear, who knew only love and safety and belonging. And Jake and Clara grew old together, side by side. Partners in everything. On their 10th anniversary, they renewed their vows. A small ceremony, just family and close friends. The same church where they'd married. The same reverend who'd pronounced them husband and wife. But this time, when the reverend asked if anyone objected, Clara didn't hold her breath. Didn't feel that flicker of fear. She just smiled, because she knew with absolute certainty that the storms were over, that the shadows were gone, that nothing and no one would ever take this life from her. Not because the world had become safer. It hadn't. There were still dangers out there. Still people who did terrible things. Still storms that could destroy everything you'd built. But because she had learned something in the years since that night when she'd collapsed at Jake Callahan's barn door, clutching her daughter, praying for shelter. She had learned that home wasn't a place. It was the people you chose to stand beside. The family you built from broken pieces. The love you refused to let die, no matter how hard the world tried to kill it. She had learned that survival wasn't just about staying alive. It was about choosing to live. Fully. Fearlessly. With your whole heart open to joy and pain and everything in between. She had learned that second chances were real, that healing was possible, that even the most wounded souls could find their way back to light. And she had learned that the greatest courage wasn't facing down monsters or surviving violence or running through blizzards with a child in your arms. The greatest courage was love. Choosing it. Fighting for it. Believing in it when every experience told you it was dangerous, foolish, bound to end in pain. Clara had chosen love. And love had saved her. That night, after the anniversary celebration, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Clara and Jake sat together on the porch. The same porch where he'd proposed. The same stars wheeling overhead. Any regrets? Jake asked. None. Not a single one. Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. They're what brought me here. Clara leaned against him, feeling his heartbeat against her back. I wouldn't change anything. Not the running, not the fear, not even Silas. Because all of it led me to you, to this life, to this family. You're a remarkable woman, Clara Callahan. I'm just a woman who got lucky, who stumbled into the right barn on the right night and found the right man waiting. Luck had nothing to do with it. Then what was it? Jake was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft, certain. Grace. The kind that shows up when you need it most. The kind that gives you shelter in a storm and refuses to let you face the darkness alone. He turned her to face him, cupped her face in his hands. You were my grace, Clara. You and Lily. You showed up when I'd forgotten how to live, and you reminded me what life was for. Clara's eyes filled with tears. The good kind. The only kind she cried anymore. We saved each other, she said. That's the story. That's how it ends. No. Jake kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. That's how it begins. Every day. Over and over. We save each other, and we keep saving each other until there's no more saving left to do. And then we rest, together, forever. Clara smiled, wrapped her arms around her husband, let herself be held. Outside, the night was vast and dark and full of possibility. Inside, a family slept safe and warm and loved. And Clara Callahan, who had once been Clara Weston, who had once been a terrified woman running for her life, finally knew what it meant to be home. Not a place, not a building, not even safety, though that mattered too. Home was Jake's arms around her, Grace's laughter from the bedroom, Lily's drawings covering the walls, Thomas's first steps across the kitchen floor. Home was choosing each other, every day, through storms and sunshine, through fear and joy, through everything life threw at them. Home was love. And love, Clara had learned, was the only thing strong enough to heal the deepest wounds, to light the darkest nights, to turn strangers into family and broken hearts into whole ones. She had run 200 miles through winter to find it. She had fought monsters and faced death to keep it. And now, finally, she could rest. Because she was home, and she would never run again.